Good morning, folks, and welcome to the 2022 Next Generation Leadership Institute Information and Application Announcement webinar. We're so glad that you joined us today, and we're so fortunate to have a panel of our current cohort members that are going to be speaking with you about their experience. And the voice you're listening to is Ray Ledgerwood, your moderator for today's session. But let me turn the program right over to Brent Van Dyke, our National Conservation Foundation Chair. Brent?
Well, thank you, Ray, and what an honor and a privilege it is for me to be able to welcome everyone to this webinar on behalf of the National Conservation Foundation. We are just so excited at NCF to be able to help sponsor this endeavor. It's been a long time in the making. We have our first class of cohorts that are serving on the panel. It's just a wonderful time to be able to come out of COVID and be able to begin getting back to normal. I know our inaugural class of cohorts is probably really excited to be able to see a light at the end of the tunnel when they can travel once again with NACD on behalf of the Conservation Foundation. The program has been in the development stages for numerous years, and I think that through the hard work of our contractors, NACD staff, and the foundation, we've been able to put together an amazing opportunity for supervisors to understand their skill set and put those skill sets to beneficial use for conservation. So welcome. I hope you all have an amazing webinar, and I'm going to have to jump off. I have another meeting. So enjoy the day, enjoy the webinar, and thank you for what you do in conservation.
Thank you, Brent. We appreciate those welcoming comments and all the work that you've done as our national president, and certainly the work you're doing now as our National Conservation Foundation chair. Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.
Well, let's review the agenda for today. We've got a power-packed agenda for 90 minutes. Those welcoming comments and the agenda review, certainly, the Next Generation Leadership Institute formation and purpose, some background, and then we're going to be treated to our cohort roundtable presentations. Our cohort members are with us today. We won't have Mark with us today. Mark had a family health issue he needed to take care of, but we do have other cohort members with us today. Our 2022 Next Generation Leadership Recruitment and Application Process will be the bulk of what we talk about today too, and that is how to recruit, how to apply if you have someone that's interested in becoming the 2022 cohort member. And then the current cohort wants to express some appreciation for the Next Generation Leadership Institute and our 2022 cohort recruitment. We'll take some questions along the way and have some discussion, and then certainly have some closing comments at the end. So welcome, that's our agenda. Our objectives for today's webinar are threefold. One is to promote and provide information on the 2022 Next Generation Leadership Institute cohort application process, show the information on the website and demonstrate the application form. And with us today is Aubry, and she'll be talking with us about that in a lot more detail in the mid part of our webinar today. The Next Generation Leadership member connection with our webinar participants through shared stories about each of our cohort members' leadership journey at the start of the NGLI, during, and plans for after, and then answer any questions that you may have as participants. So for logistics, all the lines are muted right now except for our panelists, our presenters. You can enter questions via the web, use the questions area on the webinar dashboard, and we'll encourage you to do that. Perhaps that would be better instead of the chat, but go ahead, and either way that you want to go is fine with us. We'll get to as many of those questions as we can. Just a note that the presentation will be recorded and utilized to promote the program during this application period, July through September. So feedback is welcome. If you have some kudos, some comments, etc., please email those to Aubry Evans at nacdnet.org. Her email is there on the screen, and I'm looking forward to to having those comments. So if you haven't already, use the chat area of the dashboard to just put your name, state, and organization. That's fantastic. That'll let us know who's on our webinar today. So I'm going to get started right away with the Next Generation Leadership Institute Formation and Purpose. Brent really got us off to the right place because he spoke about the past history. This was a dream of many conservation district leaders and NACD leaders throughout our history to form a leadership program for conservation district officials. And so what we're doing is living a dream that was started several years ago and is now a reality. And that formation and purpose, then I'll just give that formation purpose and talk about some of the first cohort activities. For background, the focus of the National Conservation Foundation, or NCF, is to develop the next generation of conservation leaders. Again, a dream come true now, and we're living that dream of folks from years past that wanted to see this type of program offered. There was an advisory committee that was created to establish the structure, talk about some of the curriculum, talk about what we wanted to do with such a program, and then it has been adjourned. And we've got an operating committee that's formed now and providing the leadership for the program, including, designing the application processes, the questions that would be asked, the interview processes, and that sort of thing. And they have oversight over the overall program. So the operating committee, 5 members, and we're blessed to have a few of our members actually on the phone today, or actually on the webinar today with us. Patricia Lardy's on with us. Irene Moore's with us. You just heard from Brent Van Dyke, and there may even be a couple of other members, a 5-member operating committee. The goals of the Next Generation Leadership Institute: to focus topics for conservation district leaders. Make sure that the topics, this will be a little bit different than your state's agricultural leadership programs, because this will be really related at conservation leadership. The next nationwide participation, we desire to have a cohort member from each of the regions. And so we want nationwide participation. There'll be in-person trainings throughout the United States. And then this will include professional instruction that's also affordable, and a sustainable program for future years. Our curriculum is placed here in front of you, but we actually have the cohort members examining the personal leadership style and conservation ethic, learning to communicate through the conflict arising from conservation challenges and the diverse political climates that we're dealing with, not only before the pandemic, but during and after, and understanding the value of civic and organizational leadership. Gaining some practical tools such as needs assessment, strategic planning for both the public conservation districts and nonprofit associations that our folks belong to. And then practice leading conservation districts through change and actually assessing new opportunities for change. The networking that goes on from the cohort, you'll probably hear about today from the cohort members, but they also network with conservation leaders from across the nation. And hoping that there'll be a capstone activity, and in this case, this cohort, there may be several activities, and we'll explain that a little bit more later on in the webinar today. The applicants. Applications will be accepted from the currently appointed or elected conservation district officials with a current or potential for statewide leadership positions. We're asked quite often, does age matter? Well, to this extent, we want these folks that would be applying for the new cohort 2022 to have lots of tread left in their tires. Let me just say it that way. We want them to have a longer term relationship with their conservation leadership journey. And so that's what we can tell you. So age isn't necessarily a qualifier at all, but we certainly do want them to be with us for a while. We want those applicants to be committed to future conservation district service. As I just said, there'll be 7 participants that we selected for this second program year, the 2022 year, 1 from each NACD region. And we'll be recruiting an applicant from each state and island territory. And for those of you that are with us today, we're hoping that you've already got somebody in mind that you want to recruit, or perhaps you're the one that has been recruited to apply for a position on a 2022 cohort. There'll be 14 applicants that we selected for interviews. In theory, we're hoping to have 2 from each region that we would interview, and then 7 participants are selected, 1 from each region. Our application, online application, we're going to go do a soft roll on this and go ahead and start it right now. In fact, I think Aubry kicked over the switch and made that available to all of you now. So I'm going to leave that up here for just a little bit so that you could actually write down that direct website address to the online application form. We did have somebody try yesterday, and we had a bit of a snafu, and we're hoping that we've taken care of all of that. Our application window is from July 15, tomorrow. Actually, it'll be right after the webinar today, through the September 24. And we're going to get into more details of the application form, the agreement that we're going to ask for the successful applicants to fill out, and then also the tuition and finances. We've got your questions that you sent us in the registration process. Really pleased that you sent those to us, and we'll get to those questions throughout the course of the webinar today. So just a little bit of background regarding that. Let me just start out by saying also that after our in-person meeting in Las Vegas at the national meeting in February 2020, our plans changed a bunch, and probably get a big thumbs up from the panelists and so forth in that regard, that we went to a web-based training, followed up with our in-person training that we're going to reestablish here at the summer meeting. And we are all excited about going to Chicago to the summer meeting, and our cohort will be actually presenting there too. So we'll restart our in-person meetings then at the NACD summer meeting and continue through February of 2022. Here's an example of some of the activities though that we were able to do even during the pandemic. We had an urban agriculture conservation webinar in April of 2020. We did a policy work and influence of COVID-19 webinar in May of 2020. We actually had training on public speaking recommendations and tips, conservation leaders webinar in June of 20, and the Noble Research Institute, one of the key sponsors of our Next Generation Leadership Institute, gave us a training on generational intelligence and working effectively with different generations. Leonard Jordan joined us for a fireside chat with a cohort on his lessons learned in his conservation career this past December. We went back, and the Noble Research Institute gave us a work session on advanced training, working effectively with different personality types. And we also had a training on communication and marketing tools. We did a virtual 2021 NACD annual meeting and participated in those in a virtual format, attending the general sessions, President's Association, a virtual, a social, and all in February 2021. And we also participated in the 2021 NACD fly-in. Well, it's my pleasure to turn the program over to Aubry Evans, the program manager for NACD for the Next Generation Leadership Institute. Aubry?
Ray. Hello, everyone. I am really excited to be here. And it is my great pleasure to be able to moderate this next section of the program and introduce you to our current cohort members. So we are going to go ahead and have some presentations by each cohort member on how the NGLI experience has helped them, what they've learned, their favorite session, how they're using it in their everyday lives, and where they started and where they are now. And with that, I will go ahead and tap Joe Coughlin.
Thanks, Aubry. Got unmuted there. Yeah, again, Joe Coughlin from North Central Oklahoma. Great to be here today. Great to see everybody. And gosh, it's hard to nail down one topic for 2 or 3 minutes to talk about that had an impact on us, but I'm going to give it a shot. As an example, in our programming, we had the opportunity, as Ray mentioned, to participate in the Myers-Briggs Personality Profile study, which was facilitated by the Noble Foundation in Oklahoma. And this really helped to open my eyes up to my personal natural preferences and tendencies, which in turn helped me to become more aware of those different personality preferences in my own workplace and in my professional life. Further, since family involves 90% of my work environment, it really helped me to step back and try to be more sensitive to my family members' needs and thought processes. For example, while I might exhibit more of a thinking type of personality preference, if I can recognize that my brother or my son or one of my daughters may exhibit the feeling type of personality profile preference, then hopefully I can try to make that work environment more pleasant and productive by being sensitive to other preferences and differences. So not only has this been a plus for my business, but it also helps to strengthen my family relationships as well. Finally, reflecting on my personal leadership journey here with the NGLI cohort, it's been really refreshing and humbling to be part of a group of individuals with similar interests that have come together to learn and share with one another. What better way to grow than to share our own strengths and weaknesses with a trusted group of friends, which in turn has become our family. And that's what this is, and it will continue to be so. So I just thank everyone for this great opportunity I've had. It's been a rewarding and a great learning experience. Thanks, Aubry.
Thank you, Joe. That was very nice. Next up, we have Barbarablyweise.
Thank you. And I think if there's one thing that would be accomplished with this session is that everyone would know how to pronounce my last name. So that's a big deal. So what's the most memorable or significant aspect of NGLI for me? It's the realization that the cohort of my brothers and sisters really are the past, present, and future, all in one room. How much I learn and have learned from them, mutual inspiration, uniquely emotional experience, and to be honest, it leaves me believing every time that anything is achievable. I first got this sense when I started reading the assigned materials, so be aware you will get assigned reading, so that part never ends. We were asked to read a book, The Worst of Times by Timothy Egan, which talks about the Dust Bowl. And while I understood the Dust Bowl, I didn't really comprehend the breadth of the environmental and the family impact. It brought me literally to tears about the despair and destruction of it on so many levels. We also read The Love of the Land and an interview with either an attorney that actually created the soil and water conservation districts through federal legislation. I call it witnessing the federal glacier in motion. Almost 100 years ago. And add to that the history of NACD and the courage it took for them to expand its mission from purely agriculture and the importance of that to dealing with conservation issues created by urbanization. That took courage, and that was only a mere 40 years ago. But we're living it today, and this cohort is able to address that. We know we have to still fight the good fight. To say that I know how it ends is only partially true. We know how we got here, and we know where we need to go, and we know it's not easy. It's not easy at all, because if it was, it would have been done already. But what we do know is that this cohort and the leadership and the training that you get is going to prepare us to motivate our districts, motivate our state associations, and ultimately the country to improve conservation for all of us. Being part of the Next Generation Leadership Institute is an honor, and I have an immense sense of pride to be part of living history, to be part of NACD's journey. It gives me an overwhelming sense of purpose, and I hope that you will consider joining this. And that's my message. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much for your comments. So as Ray had mentioned earlier, Mark Masters wanted to be with us today, but he had a family emergency come up and was unable to. So we are going to go on ahead and talk to Cassius Spirits. I believe you're muted, Cassius.
There we go. Everyone here. Sorry about that. What a way to start off. I have to start off by saying progress moves at the speed of trust. The Next Generation Leadership Institute had exposed me to a lot of people, had a huge support staff. The other cohorts is a part of a team that you can lean on as well and grow together. Has just opened my eyes up to where we are as far as within ourselves. To be able to have an experience where they bring the best out in you and show you what your capabilities are, providing you tools, being able to sit and talk and chat with people and learn from their experience is an experience in its own. I would recommend partaking in this cohort, in this Next Generation Leadership Institute, you know, to everyone. It's just that powerful. And I have to say, my best part of this, and there were so many parts that, you know, you know, I'm I don't want to undervalue any of them. But the fireside chat, to be able to sit down with someone after they put their time in and they're now, I don't know, playing golf or fishing or continue working conservation, but to actually speak with them and learn from the past, learn from their experiences as far as how the world is changing and changing rapidly. Going through this pandemic has opened all of our eyes to see, you know, that change can happen quick and very quickly, I should say, and we have to, and success or survival rate is dependent on how fast we can adapt to it. And all these experiences is just overwhelming, yes, necessary, yes, and wouldn't trade it for anything. I would go through it all over again. But the fireside chat, to be able to sit down and talk to a individual and talk about their experiences and things that they've seen and what has happened, would it just opened my eyes to the everyday life that we're all living. Put your hand up to your chest and you can feel the life inside of you, but are you actually living, or are you going through the motions? And to be able to talk to somebody that's so passionate about, you know, conservation and what they do, really reached out, or I felt that, I should say. So and other than that, I would say that the last question, where we started and where we are now, we're still at the beginning. And I just feel that, you know, it's a position that every day is a new experience and every day something else is created, and you just have to have the ability to work with those challenges as they arise, regardless if it's political, economical, or social or whatever. You have to be able to put your best thoughts forward, and again, rely on your support system that you have behind you. And again, I'll say that progress moves at the speed of trust.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your comments, Cassius. Next up, we have Ryan Britt.
Good morning, everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and see my friends on the cohort here, and Ray and Aubry, and hear from Brent Van Dyke this morning. What a wonderful legacy that Brent has left, and the Conservation Foundation is trying to build through us and through the next class that we're trying to encourage here today. My story in conservation is not different than many people, and actually very similar to Joe's here in Oklahoma. But I really appreciate this opportunity I've had here on the Leadership Institute. A couple of the things that have stuck out to me in what I've learned are and I'm sure this was done on purpose and how it was selected, but the diversity of the backgrounds, the culture, and the environment of the cohort members have brought perspectives to me that I had no way of getting in rural Missouri, north central Missouri. I have a new appreciation for each of the challenges that we face, and seeing things through other people's eyes, and seeing things that I never would have considered otherwise. And also along Joe and I seem to be walking a very similar parallel path, but I also appreciated the noble presentations and both the personality traits, and then also the generational intelligence communication styles. And both of those sessions were things that I really haven't liked in the past when I've had opportunities to go through those type of studies. I always was more confused and frustrated after one of those than when I started. But with these particular presentations and the opportunity to work through them with my fellow cohort members, it actually did teach me how to communicate better with other people and to, once again, see their perspective, understand where they're coming from, understand either what was important to them or how that would be different than how that's important to me. And then we can find the things that we both find as a priority and focus on those, and we can accomplish so much more. As far as where I started on the county level and was actually in the state association when I came on to the Leadership Institute. And currently past president, so I'm kind of one of the old has-beens already, but serving on some national committees now through NACD. And then also, I don't know if you guys can see my background picture, but if you can, you understand that Missouri's had a lot of water recently. And it's really easy for us on the farm to get focused on what's going on. And my background picture shows a cornfield that was a beautiful cornfield in May that is a big lake now. And that's unfortunately not the only one in our area that looks like that. And so it's really easy to get down in agriculture and only focus on what's going on in our immediate area. But through working through NACD, getting to know my cohort members and understand some of the challenges that they've got going on in their situations, it helps me have an appreciation for what is going on nationally is so much more important, but also sometimes there's better things going on and I don't get down on myself as much. So I really appreciate the opportunities we've had. Wonderful people, and I'll talk a little more about recruitment later, but it's just been fun, and I highly encourage everyone to try to take part if they can.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have Sam Steiner.
Hi, everybody. Wow. So one of the great things about being down here towards the end of this is that my fellow cohorts have covered a lot of amazing things, and I echo a lot of what they have just said. The opportunity to be a part of this group has been incredibly eye-opening to me. I've spent my whole life down here in Southwest Ohio and have been a part of conservation my whole life. It's always been something important to my family and passed on to me as I started my own agricultural business, raising cattle and chickens and turkeys and all that funness. And being able to move to a national level and join this group and seeing what is going on around the country and talking to other people and knowing we have different problems, but we have the same, and that we're all dealing with hardships. We're all dealing with blessings. We're all dealing with good days and bad days. And it's been great talking to other people and talking to my fellow cohorts and seeing how they face their challenges and how some of those challenges can be used here back home. So some of the classes that I've really enjoyed is learning my personality and how to deal with other people, how to talk through problems and finding solutions, and the different generations and how what our lives experiences have faced has shown how we view things. And so that's been really great. So if you have the opportunity to be a part of this, I definitely recommend it because it's just been awesome. And I'm excited that we get to continue on and we finally get to meet again in person here in a couple weeks. But I will say one of the great things about the whole pandemic is that we actually have gotten together more often than I think we would have if we had stayed on our normal schedule. So the virtual meetings overall have been really awesome. So, thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Sam. And last but not least, we have Phil Campbell. Got you on mute, Phil.
Thank you, Aubry. How am I coming through?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Out there. A wise man once told me that the trip that you plan may not be the journey that you actually take. With this in mind, the NGLI experience has helped me on my leadership journey by giving me the confidence to speak within the conservation space. As a result, I've utilized some of the lessons learned at the local level, state level, and now at the national level. I don't have a favorite session that we went through because they were all exceptional, and it gave us the opportunity to gather additional tools within our toolkits. And I'm sure that the rest of my cohorts would agree that our toolkits are full to capacity, but we're looking at expanding and getting even larger toolkits. There's not a day that goes by that I don't apply one of the lessons or one of the experiences that we've gone through over this journey. In fact, I count them as life lessons. And I'm sure that the rest of the cohorts would agree that these are life lessons that we will carry forward, not only within our conservation arena or conservation space, but throughout life as we go through life. And with that being said, I highly recommend that anyone who's considering applying for this leadership opportunity, that they wholeheartedly go for it, both feet, all in. Back over to you, Aubry.
Thank you so much, Phil, and thanks to all of the cohort members for your insightful comments. That was, as always, inspiring to hear you all talk, and it is such an honor for me to get to be the NACD staff on this program. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ray.
Thanks, Aubry. Well, let's dive deeper into the recruitment and the goals for our 2022 cohort. And again, let me add my thanks to our current cohort for your remarks. And we're looking forward to hearing those remarks again at our summer meeting in Chicago. And thanks so much for preparing those. And it's heartwarming to know that we still have some curriculum that's going to be provided to you, in Chicago, and then certainly at our Noble Research Institute. And we hope to squeeze in a trip to Washington, D.C. to boot. So we've got a lot of road, but our journey is ongoing. We're hoping that we can attract one outstanding candidate application from every state and the island territories that's sponsored by that state association or island association. And so we're hoping for 50 plus applications to arrive starting today, all the way through the mid part of September. We're going to conduct 14 interviews, and those will be conducted by the operating committee, the 5-person operating committee, and we're hoping that we would attract then 2 interviews from each of the regions. Finally, selecting 7 new cohort members, each of them being a conservation district board member for the current term. So let's look at that application form, Aubry. Let me pull it up on the screen and actually walk down through the application form so the folks can get familiar with that then. Let's see if we can pull that up easily here, get that going. Hang with me just a bit. I'm going to get that application form up and running. So there we go. Okay, Aubry, I think I've got the application form up on the screen there.
I'm not seeing it yet, Ray.
Okay. And now.
There we go.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, so the nuts and bolts, what you've all been waiting for, what the heck goes on this application form? So the goal here, you can read for yourself, obviously, is to equip conservation district leaders with the tools to become national leaders through personal, civic, and organizational leadership development, as we have been talking about all morning. Eligible candidates are going to be current conservation district officials with current or potential for a statewide leadership program committed to future conservation district service. Candidates must remain in their term for the entirety of the program. We've got down here, we've got places for just your generic information, email, names, another email, verification, mailing address, phone number, your current position, your expiration date, number of total years working, any professional or civic organizations involved with, the district name and mailing address, your district's phone number, your district's website if you have one, the number of district staff, oftentimes that's one, number of district board members, and your region. There is a hyperlink inserted there in case you aren't aware of what NACD region you are in. You can look that up real fast to verify. And the next question will be, are you current with your NACD dues in your district? And then we have a series of questions that are essay form, 250 word limit. And it does say in the beginning, we would like you to probably have that in a document somewhere else that you can maybe cut and paste in case something were to happen while you're in the process of filling this form out, so we don't lose that work completely. So from your perspective, what is the greatest challenge facing conservation districts as organizations? And describe the ideal role you envision for districts in addressing the challenge. What is the greatest challenge you perceive facing natural resources and/or sustainable agriculture in the United States, and describe how you see districts addressing the challenge? What do you discern are the top 3 conservation district activities that require leadership? How do you reflect on failure in leadership? We all know no one is perfect. How has demonstrated leadership impacted your life? What qualities do you value the most in others? Give us an example of how diversity has influenced you in your leadership journey. What are your future goals for your involvement with conservation districts and their associations? And then the terms and commitments, read and understand the commitments of the NGLI program. There is another link there so that you can see the commitment form. Yeah, thanks, Ray. Just so that you can verify if that's something that you want to do. And then we have letters of support. You will need letters of support from your state or territory association, as well as a letter of support from your individual conservation district.
Outstanding, Aubry. And there may be some questions that come up here from the participants. We'd be happy to answer those questions as we go along. So put your questions in the Q&A area if you want to ask a question of us that's different than the question that you sent in the registration. We then want to cover some of the things that came up in the application, or excuse me, the registration questions for the webinar. And part of it comes right in here at the applications and the financial considerations. Several of you had asked, what is the cost? Some of the others of you had asked, what is the application window? When would we start? What would we be doing? What about the requirements that are there? Many of you said you had general questions and just needed some more information. And so our intent is to provide that at this time. Well, let's quickly review then. The application window then begins actually right after the webinar. Aubry's made it live for us, so we can do that. And if you do have any issue with the application, submitting an online application, Aubry and I are both available for you. So you can start with Aubry and send her an email or give her a phone call. Work with your regional representative. NACD regional representatives are also very well versed in the program, and we'd be happy to assist. But submit that online application. Again, we've got that link. Aubry put it up into the chat box for you so that you could actually start working it. Now, for those of you that are recruiting people, the main thing is to give information. We'll also have this informational webinar up on our website so that you can pull that up, and someone interested in the program could listen to that and also go up and apply. So we know that part of you are here to recruit, and you're looking at recruiting that next generation leader in your state. And some of you may be that next generation leader, that conservation district official that's listening in today to our testimonials, and then also our information on how to apply. Now, one of the things that's particularly important are the signed letters of support. We want to make sure that the state and or the Island Territory Association or organization has also endorsed your application or the applicant's application. Very important to us so that we know that that level of support is going to occur at that state level. But we also want to make sure that while you're attending some of the meetings, some of the which are 3 days in duration, that your conservation district supporting that too, because that might just land on a conservation district board meeting, or there's also, you know, some need for some support from your local conservation district in your journey, your leadership journey. And then you can contact us for alternate options for submitting letters of support. If you want other letters of support from different organizations and whatnot beyond your state association or Island Territory Association and your conservation district, you can certainly put some other letters of support together and send those along with your application. We are putting together a $50 application fee. You say, well, why do you do that? And we want to make sure that folks know that this is real, right? And that $50 application fee just is put back into the program for, you know, the program costs. And so it's not, that won't be refunded to you at all. So there's an easy way to do that with PayPal, and we've got the links in the application process so you can go up and take care of that. There is an agreement to participant terms. So if you're selected, we'll be talking with you about those participant terms. And another one of the participant terms that I remember in particular is that we wanted to make sure that your spouse or your significant other, the person that is very close to your family, is okay with this. A couple of the cohort members mentioned that, you know, they farm, ranch, or and business with family members, and we know how important that is. And I think I could probably get a shout out to those of you that had to do that piece, right, and make sure that the application also had support of family. All right, here's some financial considerations. Many of you had mentioned that in the Q&A or the questions that you gave us in the registration. We can estimate the value of the program exceeds $10,000. I think I may have to up that a little bit, you know, in the future program pieces, because the amount of good that you get out of it, you know, is hard to maybe quantify. But we've compared it to other leadership development programs and know that at least $10,000 of value. The tuition for an applicant that's selected to join the cohort in 2022 will be $1,200. That didn't change from 2019 to the present. We left that the same. And if that becomes a burden on the applicant selected, then some scholarship opportunities do exist, or a payment plan option can be put together. But here's some of the value or what is reimbursed or paid for by the program. Your airline travel for all the sessions, and there are 4 of them, if I remember right. Maybe 5. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. So airline travel for all your sessions, the ground transport to the session location, in the session location, the meals during the travel, the training and instruction, and the transportation during all the session, the lodging and meals during all the sessions, and the participant materials and supplies. And then also you can just say the cost of bringing in speakers and that sort of thing is borne by the program also. We have a great deal of volunteer and in-kind trainings that go on by the Noble Research Institute. Syngenta is also providing some trainers. A couple of the state conservation agencies and state associations have provided trainers. So we've got quite a mix of folks that are supporting this financially. That allows that $1,200 to just be, you know, just exploded into the value. of the program. The costs that are borne by the participants, there are some, the transportation to and from your local airport. You'll need to get to that airport, and the parking at your local airport. And then if you incur any personal expenses during the course of the events, certainly those are all your responsibility, not the program's responsibility. And that includes expenses. If you want to bring your family in, before or after, that's fine. We don't encourage our cohort members to have their family with them during the course of the events, the training events, so we can keep the focus on the training opportunity and the development and the work of the cohort members. So, but anything before or after is your responsibility then. So indeed, never do math in public, but there are 5 sessions that are in person. And you heard from our cohort members how we had to change some of our instruction and whatnot to virtual instruction. And there was pluses and minuses, as the cohort members mentioned, that to doing that. Maybe we had more, but we certainly didn't have that opportunity to get together. But we're picking that up now. So let's talk about 2022, though, in the context of what sessions would be available to a 2022 cohort member. We're going to meet 3 days at the NACD annual meeting, just like we did with this cohort in Las Vegas, and we would do that in February 2022. Aubry, help refresh me, the location has been selected for the 2022 annual meeting?
Yes, we're going to be in Orlando.
So it'll be Orlando, Florida. And then in March 2022, as part of the NACD fly-in, we'll also be doing some training, some agency visits and some legislative visits there in March 2022 in Washington, D.C. July 2022, and I believe that summer meeting is going to be in Bismarck, North Dakota, your region, Aubry, if I remember right.
I think our next summer meeting might be in Puerto Rico, but we'll have to revisit.
Okay, Puerto Rico, we may have to change that slide. So.
Yeah.
So Puerto Rico, and then maybe the 2023 would be in Bismarck. But okay, I'll make sure to change that slide. But we'll be meeting in the conjunction of the summer meeting, like we'll be doing with this cohort in Chicago. November 2022 in Ardmore at the Noble Research Institute. Each of the curriculums have been developed for these in draft form. And then in February 2023, this cohort will actually meet with the new cohort, the 2023 cohort, and graduate the 2022 cohort, like we'll be doing with this group. I guess we would call them the 2020 or 2021 cohort that you heard from today, will be coming to the NACD annual meeting. At the same time, we start our new cohort at the NACD annual meeting. So quite a lot to go on there. In terms of evaluation, the program assessments that will be completed will include the experiences, the outcomes, the value, the locations, the support, and we'll be making the mid-course corrections in any of those things based on the evaluations of our cohort members and the decisions made by the operating committee. And so that cohort will be key for each year to evaluate how did we do, what would we change, what would we do, and we really consider the cohort graduates, right, as a main source of information for the new cohort members. And we've had some work done by Barbarablyweise and the President's Association regarding mentoring and that sort of thing, but we also consider the 7 people in our current cohort as important mentors to the new cohort members that would be there. Information will help us shape that future development and activities. So let me review in detail some of the detail. We've talked about the finances, we've talked about the programs, the in-person work that would be done, and the curriculum that's been developed. And if you want any more information on that, please don't hesitate to email Aubry or I, or give us a call, and we'd be happy to share whatever we've got in terms of additional information. So our application opens July 15th. We plan on running that through July and August and part of September. And that allows us some time that if we do need to solicit more applications from a region, Aubry and I are going to be calling on you, our conservation leaders and people that are on the webinar today, to help us with that recruitment process between July 15 and September 24. We'll close the application process then in September. Applications that will be reviewed and ranked through October 5. And then the interviews we hope to conduct between the 11th and the 22nd of this year. The committee selection, we hope, would convene October 29th, and offers would be made in November of this year. The acceptance and the payment confirmed, the participants' agreement signed, that sort of thing by the 7 successful cohort members, and the welcoming webinar we would anticipate sometime around mid-December. And then just a couple months later, a first session at the annual meeting. So leave that timeline up there, make sure, look up here at the dashboard, see if there are any questions regarding that, and make sure that we're okay with the timeline. Okay. All right. So Aubry, we put in here the opportunity for some questions and discussion here. I can put up the questions that we did receive and kind of go through those a little bit if you want, and then we'll examine the dashboard. So for all of the folks that are participating, if you've got a specific question, now's the time. We would love for you to just share those out with Aubry and I and the cohort members if you've got some questions. All right, well, let's see how we did on the questions that you sent in the registration. Some of the questions dealt with the overall long-term goal of the program. We hope that we've answered that question for you. Really, the development of our next generation conservation leaders and the participation in the work at your local, your state, your regional, and your national levels would be what we hope to get done, and to give the tools and techniques and experiences to do that. Cost for participation, we did cover that, and the commitment, cost for participation. We ask a lot of this cohort regarding commitment. I mean, we not only are going to do the original planned in-person meetings, but we also did these webinars. So as Sam pointed out, I think we actually kind of doubled up some of the work that we did. So maybe it was quite an advantage, I hope. A cost for the Leadership Institute. If you want the entire cost, you know, we can get that for you through the Conservation Foundation. One of the things I will mention is the Conservation Foundation has suggested that we would work with 7 you know, cohort members again for this year and expand, and we hope that to get some more financial support. And any of you know the donors or sponsors that would help us with that, we would love to change that 7 to 10 or 14 or 21, you know, over the years as we go along with more financial support. But we want to keep that tuition reasonable for folks to do this. All right, and how much travel is involved? The 5 travel in-person meetings would be what we would expect. And will it be on weekends or weekdays? Both, actually. It depends on when we would be able to meet with a cohort before or after an NACD event. And so we try to make sure that our board members can get to their board meetings, the NACD board meetings. Oftentimes our cohort members are board members also. More about that in just a bit. Let's see, Aubry, how are we doing? Questions that
we have a question from Jennifer here on the chat. It says, Ryan hit on this a little bit when he was sharing, but what are examples of next steps after the completion of the NGLI?
Yeah, next steps for each of the cohort members. Is that what you would anticipate from Jennifer's question?
I believe so, yes.
Well, you know, that leadership journey is personal, and the testimonies told us so, you know, and we would hope that, you know, that the tools and techniques were used by the cohort members, certainly at their local conservation district board and leadership there, but also extends probably to their state association or their state conservation agencies. In Phil's case, he's a participant in both, but he's actually the chair of the state conservation agency. So we would expect that probably the cohort member would want to expand their leadership journey in the way they want to, at their local, their state, either association or state conservation agency. And then I'm just thrilled. These 7 have also extended in the NACD. Michael Crowder, the president of NACD, made sure that he worked with each of the 7 to place them onto a committee that we needed people to serve on. And you'll see that in just a bit, Jennifer, some of the extension of what these cohort members have been doing. So that's what we would hope for, right? All right. Did we have other questions there?
That's it so far.
Okay. How can you support your cohorts? Well, just understand when they're not at every meeting that you want them at your local district meeting or your state association. If they're gone to Washington, D.C. or one of the other meetings, listen to what they're learning. Make place for the learnings and techniques to be shared with other board members and other state association board members, state conservation agency board members. Give them an opportunity to speak, to work, to do things that they would ask to do. And help them be a part of their state association representation at regional and national meetings. I think we went over the deadline to sign up and the type of candidates we're looking for. That's the dedicated folks, the folks that just want to be part of our conservation leadership future. And that's who we're looking for. And this is one that probably the one task felt the most uncomfortable while improving yourself. So listen, let's go around the panelists, maybe Aubry, and see if maybe the panelists would want to talk to that. What is the one task you felt the most uncomfortable while improving yourself?
Yeah, so I'm going to go down the list here, and Sam, you're the first one I see. So
for me, I've always been a great listener, and I'm really good at taking in information and then just going to work and getting stuff done. And so one of the biggest challenges for me was learning how to speak up more and put myself in uncomfortable situations and being able to talk to bigger groups of people. So that has been very uncomfortable, but very growing, and I've learned a lot from it.
thank you. Ryan, you're the next one on my screen.
Well, it's funny that I'm after Sam because Sam and I are opposites in a lot of things, and it makes us work well together. We've enjoyed our time together and kind of hit things off really well off the bat. But as I say, I had to kind of learn to listen and to shut up for a little bit and quit making opinions so quickly, but to sit back and hear what everyone else is saying and appreciate their viewpoint.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Cassius, how about you?
Yeah, I would have to say, trying to remember all the information that's given to you, because it's such a lot of information, and it's so good. It's good information that I have a habit of trying to use all that information and getting it out there. And so the challenging part is my own personal self, making sure that I don't leave anything out and try to use all the tools that has been given to me. So that overwhelming of all these tools and to organize them into their area to where you pull them as you need them is challenging. And I have to say that facilitators gave us some awesome pocket guides and things of that nature that you could just pull out before you walk into a presentation or you have a important meeting that you have to attend and you want to stay on point, which really was really helpful for me.
Great, thank you so much, Cassius. Barbara, you're next down.
Oh, there's a lot. I would say I never had Sam's problem of being shy. That's never been an issue. What this group has taught me and what I had to deal with I will say lack of comfort, which is always a sign of growth, is accepting that, is how to balance facilitating. And we had a strategic planning session, for example, and facilitating and making sure everyone's heard, but still driving to a goal. And so learning how to balance being a facilitator, such as Ray, for example, and encouraging input from everybody, but again, still driving towards an outcome that we can all live with. And That has been very, very hard because I have three, for example, in my case, 3 new supervisors, and they all have a different way, and they all have their own opinions of private sector versus public and so forth. So being patient and using all the tools to drive that dynamic forward has been really hard.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Phil, how about you?
Aubry, I would have to say that it's being vulnerable. Understand that I may not have all of the answers regarding conservation, but I do have a cohort that's willing to explain to me their perspectives, their point of view. And as I take that in and process it, it helps me to be a better leader, a better manager, and a all-around human. So that's what I would have to say is been the greatest challenge, being vulnerable in this setting.
That's a good one. Thanks, Phil. And Joe.
Sure, Aubry. Yeah, actually what I was kicking around was some training that we haven't really had yet, but we're going to here in a few days in Chicago. And it kind of relates to what Sam was talking about with public speaking. We're going to have some media training coming up in Chicago, and it's a double-edged sword. I'm kind of excited about it. And I'm kind of dreading it too, because I've participated in some of these before. And anytime you put a camera or a microphone in front of a face, there's some challenges there. It kind of works on your confidence, and but it's something that's very necessary and something that's good and needed in our leadership journeys. And so that's something that I always struggle with a little bit. But again, we need to practice that. We need to work on that. And so I'm looking forward to that opportunity. But that's what came to mind for me. Thanks, Aubry.
That's definitely a common one. I share that with you. All right, back to you, Ray.
Thanks, Aubry, and thanks for those questions and thoughtful questions that you gave us, and we hope that we've gotten to many of them. We do have some announcements and some more information that the cohort members are going to be providing, so don't leave us yet. We've got some very important information for you that we want to share, and part of that is appreciation for the Next Generation Leadership Institute and also our cohort recruitment. You're not going to want to miss the recruitment pitch that is going to come from Ryan toward the end of our program today. So Joe, let's start with you. You wanted to extend some appreciation, and then we've got other announcements and other things that we want to cover with the group today. Joe?
You bet. Thanks, Ray. Yeah, so on behalf of the entire 2020 NGLI cohort, just like to take a moment to express a little bit of our thanks, our heartfelt gratitude for the opportunity to come together and be a part of this humbling program. It's been a great journey. We truly appreciate the support of the National Association of Conservation Districts and their board's involvement in support of this program. As Ray alluded to earlier in the program, the mission of the National Conservation Foundation is to identify and advance strategic programs and partnerships to deliver conservation solutions through locally led conservation and to develop the next generation of conservation leaders. I want to repeat that, to develop the next generation of conservation leaders. Just like to say thank you so much to the National Conservation Foundation for this mission and for these efforts that they have given to us. Our thanks go out again to the National Conservation Foundation Executive Board, as well as the National Conservation Foundation Board of Trustees. We appreciate the awesome facilitators you've shared with us in Ray, Sunny, and most recently, Aubry. Once again, thank you for your foresight and investment in the future of conservation leaders for our nation and its natural resources. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. And we got a team effort here. Phil and Cassius are going to cover some of the thank yous to our guests, our trainers, and that sort of thing that we had in our pandemic-led training. And I just suggest maybe, Cassius, you'd want to talk about these first couple, and then I'll turn it over to Phil for the next slide, and back to Cassius. How'd that be? Go ahead.
Okay.
Cassius. Yeah.
All right. Again, I wrote something really, just a short line, and it says that our ability to shine comes from the polishing of others. And, you know, these different organizations and people that came in and extended their service to us, their knowledge, and showed us different techniques. You know, hats off to them. I mean, these organizations was awesome. You know, and I can't go any further without thanking Ray, Sonny, Aubry, for reaching out and being able to, you know, harness these different groups and to come in and kind of looked at us as a whole. When I say us, I'm talking about the cohort, and say, you know what, right now we pulled this group in and we can, they could use some of this, or they could use some public speaking, or they could use that. So they kind of read us, they listened to our needs, our wants, and they gave us that free space to work, which is so important. So, but by adding and I just have to say, thank you to all the presenters. Thank you to all the facilitators, and it was an awesome, what should I say, a formula that was put together for us. And again, I know I repeat myself, but they say keep repeating those positive things. So, you know, our ability to shine come from the polishing of others. So thank you, Ray. Thank you, Audrey, and on all that's listening.
Phil, thoughts? I'll put these names up here of some of the speakers that we had. You know, for the Urban Agriculture Conservation webinar, Susie, Jan, Damon, and policy work and influence. Kevin Norton joined us, Jenny and Ryan and Coleman. Ryan actually came to us because we had connections. Barbara had connections with the Center for American Progress, and we were able to get that. So oftentimes it's our cohort members that are helping Aubry and I and Sonny find, you know, some really good speakers. And of course, we called on Randy Fraser, public speaking, and Amy Hayes has been phenomenal from the Normal Research Institute. Phil, why don't you take us into the other folks that we express appreciation for our presenters and trainers?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ray. Again, the guests that we had during this experience or during this journey were absolutely the best. They range from industry experts, research consultants, and members from the local boards, state associations, as well as those that serve at the national level, to include the chairs of some of the committees that your cohort are actually serving on and serving with in this conservation space. You know, they poured their hearts and souls into providing hours and that sacrifice in order that we may be further developed as those leaders of tomorrow in the conservation space. It's with a great appreciation from myself as well as the rest of the cohort to say that it's a very heartfelt appreciation, and the investment that you placed into this cohort will continue to pay dividends in the future. And I pass that back over to you, Ray.
Thanks, Phil. Barb, how about the cohort committees and activities that they're currently involved with?
So this is as people can see, list. There's 2 slides, I think, and it touches all of our volunteer activities into conservation projects. But this, I think, answers Jennifer's question about what's next. And I wouldn't say it's an expectation per se that we must do this, but what we found when we were rounding out this question within one of our sessions was every one of us wanted to be involved with an NACD policy group of some sort. Some already were, and then I was new to it. But I found that consistently the cohort members tend to want to drive the bus or be involved at the front of the bus, or that's the best analogy I can state. And many of us have a desire to volunteer anyway. So this wasn't a stretch to go to the NACD, the national level, to be involved in some kind of change, some kind of new policy. And we can see that with Mark Masters, especially with the Groundwater Task Force, which is a new task force established by Mr. Crowder. So we're looking at, drinking water and those issues that have always been an issue, but now NACD is very focused on how we're going to address it. Sam, going from her rural background with really cool agriculture with her dogwood farms and being involved with the urbanization of that practice. Phil, feeling a lifelong dream with being a farmer after being in the service for many years, focused on diversity and equity, which is a very important subject. So as I mentioned, past, present, and future, this is it. Ryan as well has done tremendous work with the Missouri Association involved with climate change. That's huge. And then with myself in North Carolina, we struggle with how do we define urban agriculture? It's a cool term, but let's start defining it because there's nothing simple about it. And again, Joe with steady. This is one thing I would define with Joe, being involved with policy and the foundation that got us started in Cassius, who I can't say enough good things about. I can't beat him when it comes to pithy statements. His involvement with tribal policy, again, back to our roots and moving forward. So anyone that joins, you can do what you want, right? But the opportunity to go step up the game, be at that national level if you choose, is here. So back to you.
Thanks, Barbara. And thank you, cohort members, for going over those. Let's turn it over to Sam. Sam, you'd mentioned that connectivity, location, that sort of thing. If you're building a hotel, it's location. Talk to us a little bit about location, connectivity, nationwide service, all of that.
So as you can see on this map here, we stretch all the way, from Oklahoma to Rhode Island, Missouri, Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia. So we're all over the place, and we've all experienced different types of agriculture, different types of conservation. And together as a cohort, we have been able to take our differences, take our different life experiences and share them, and has given everybody new outlooks on things and how to face things differently and new ability to move forward. And so as we build on to this first cohort and getting a new one and continuing this legacy, I'm so excited to see these states fill up and expand this further across the country and into other territories. And if we can get someone from every state eventually through all of this, is just going to be awesome, because there's so much knowledge out there to be brought to the table, and so many untapped resources that are still available. So looking forward to see this map continue to change.
Thanks, Sam. And certainly our recruitment effort into the 3 regions that we did not have representation on is very important too. The ability to be able to do that. Okay. All right, let me come back to it here. So Sam helped us with that, the opportunity to share back and forth across our nation. The experiences have been rich in that. Again, Mark had a family health issue he needed to take care of today, but Ryan is with us today to talk with us about the 2022 cohort recruitment. Ryan?
Thank you, Ray, and I'm sorry that you guys didn't get to hear from Mark. He is a great friend of mine now, and if you get the opportunity at the summer meeting or wherever, I hope that you will be able to hear from him and he can share some of his great wisdom. But as my challenge is to encourage the recruitment, I just want to kind of go back over a few of the highlights of what we've talked about today and what we need to focus on, and of course challenge those regions that did not have some representation in our cohort class to step up and make sure that we get great representation across the country. But first off, encourage multiple people in your state to apply. You know, as you can see, Oklahoma had two, and I'm glad it wasn't Kansas. You know, no offense to Aubry, but it's great that you have opportunity, and just encourage every single person you can think of to apply. Challenge the people that might be applying, or that, you know, are not sure whether to apply or not, to think bigger. And I think that may be one of the things that most of us have taken out of this is it's easy for us to focus on our own world, or even our own portion of what's going on nationally. But when you represent a whole group, or you have the opportunity to be in a whole group, you learn so much more that you can bring back into your local situation. And so just make sure that they're thinking bigger. They may not be thinking about, you know, state representation or national representation, but, you know, if you get the opportunity to open the door, then you can always say no. Travel, wow, what an opportunity. Now, you know, obviously our travel's been limited a little bit this last year, but we look forward to those opportunities coming up in the future. And right along with that is the value. You know, my association invested the $1,200, but it was a great investment for them, in that I was going to go to the board meetings anyway as a board member. And so the Conservation Foundation picked up most of my travel expenses. And, you know, there's not much I can do on the farm where I get a 10 times return on my investment, but what an opportunity that is. You know, the friendships that we are developing here are just something that, you know, that you don't get those kind of opportunities very often. And it may be once in a lifetime, to be quite honest, for, you know, me to have this opportunity to have this unique collection of people with like-minded concerns, like-minded goals, and like-minded attitudes in accomplishing those goals. I guess the last thing that I just want to, you know, round up with is, at the summer meeting, we hope to have a text link that we can pop out to everybody and that you guys can use. And so I'm challenging Aubry there to help us with that, and we'll get that accomplished. But I know that she has the website that she's brought up a time or two, and we'll bring it up here at the end. So make sure you send that to just anybody that you think might be interested. And please feel free to include my contact information. I'm sure any of the cohort members would be glad to talk to anybody that, you know, just might not be sure whether it's something for them or not. We would be glad to explain to them what the value is and why they should do it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ryan, so much. We also had a question that came in, Aubry. We should answer this question, came in. Hope I didn't lose Aubry. All right.
Nope, I'm here. Sorry, I'm muted.
Good.
Okay, the question was, are the NGLI meetings only for cohorts? Are the 2-day sessions in Chicago closed to the other attendees?
Well, the answer is yes, they are closed for the reserved for the cohort members. That's part of that experience of being part of this cohort, is that these are very personalized opportunities for curriculum. You're right. I mean, we can package it and we can share it on a wider audience eventually, but we want this experience to be very, very special for these 7 folks. That means that, you know, just inviting the entire summer group, right? We may want to, but we're not going to do that. In fact, I have to use my old high school wrestling skills and make sure I stand at the door and make sure that during the training sessions, our cohort members are protected and allowed to enjoy that training, you know, as part of this. So it is to that extent, although as Aubry pointed out in her chat response, you know, we're going to be sharing, you know, those experiences at the summer meeting with a wider audience too. Our 7 cohort members will be speaking at that meeting. So yes, you know, we'll look at that as we go along and evaluate this year, right? And to see whether or not we need to make changes. Some of these speakers you've already noted, I think, just in your question, some of these speakers are phenomenal that we had. And so why wouldn't we want to maybe tape those and share those at a later date, things like that. And so considerations of those things are always open. It's a journey for us too, as we prepare and work on this. All right. Ryan, thanks so much for those recruitment notes. I think that we've exhausted the questions and that we had. Aubry, do any others that we've got in there?
Nope, that's the last one.
Wow. You know, in terms of closing comments, what an honor it is to be working with this cohort as a contractor, to work with Aubry and before Aubry, Sonny, on this. It's a journey for us too, staffing and providing assistance to these cohort members. But I hope you were as inspired as I was today in learning from our cohort members, you know, what they've learned and what they've used of what we've been able to provide during a pandemic year. And we are so excited. I don't want to speak for the cohort, but I think you heard them say that they are really excited about being together again, sharing stories, talking about, you know, the conservation leadership journey that they're on, also sharing personal discussions back and forth about important things in their life and in the conservation world at the local, state, and national levels. We hit the jackpot literally when we met in Las Vegas, if I can use a kind of a odd comparison, when we had those 7 folks together for the first time. And we literally hit the jackpot with the people that were selected in this cohort. And we want to do it again. That's why we're asking you, those of you that have attended the webinar or are listening to the recording now, to recruit your state's next conservation leader. Encourage them to apply, go up and fill out the application, send it in, be a part of the process. And we hope through additional funding support to increase from 7 to a bigger number at some time in the future. But for the 2022 season, you might say, or 2022 cohort, we've been asked by the National Conservation Foundation to have 7. So if you know of a candidate, get them to apply. If you know of a funding source, tell Aubry and I who that funding source is, or Brent Van Dyke, you know, our chair of our Conservation Foundation. We want to pursue that and do that too. But wow, the value is phenomenal. The work that we've been able to do thus far has been pretty phenomenal. And we certainly appreciate your participation in today's webinar, or if you're listening to the recorded event. Now, just because we have a little bit of time, Aubry, go back around and let our cohort members say any last things that they want to say in terms of closing. And we'll finish with Ryan again, because he's our closer today.
Okay, so let's lead with Sam again. She's the first on the list.
I just really want to encourage everybody to apply. Anybody who you think has, who could use extra training, who you feel can move further with their conservation leadership and could be a part of this. Definitely spread the word, get it out there. This is an opportunity you do not want to miss.
Great. How about Barbara?
Ditto what Sam said, my sister. This is one of the most affirming experiences of your life. And if you love learning and you love being challenged and you want to be in a group of people where it is a safe space and we have like-minded views in terms of we are here for future generations, you don't want to miss this. This is a chance of a lifetime, no question.
Thank you, Barbara. Phil?
Thank you, Aubry. Again, I echo all of the comments that have been made thus far. This is truly one of the finest programs that you could ever attend. The leadership that you will gather from this experience is phenomenal. Highly recommend that anybody that is on the fence thinking about this, apply, and your life will be changed.
Wonderful, thank you. Cassius?
My grandfather used to tell me, you know, take care of your pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. So I would say, you know, and I kind of put that to the next level by investing in people, and you'll build on your community. So if you take this information that was given to you today and you bring that back and share that with your peers and your board and people that you feel will support you, I'll tell you right now that the information, and we talked about this earlier, the information that you'll bring back to your community, bring back to your board, the knowledge you will gain as an individual will be able to share among others. It's a win-win. It's just, it's really a no-brainer. This information is going to help you in your community and help you network.
Thanks, Cassius. How about Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Aubry. Yeah, again, this has been a blessing to be part of this cohort, this group. Great presentations, great speakers. The time to get together and reflect on these presentations and share information between the cohort. I mean, that's what has really made this program, making those friendships and learning from one another. It's just a great atmosphere to learn. So yes, I would highly encourage you to sign up, to apply for this program. Encourage other folks in your districts to apply for this program, in your state associations. Just a great opportunity to grow in conservation leadership. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. All right, well, we'll end it with my neighbor over there in Missouri, the closer, Ryan.
All right, thank you, Aubry. It's been a wonderful time here, and you guys can see just the quality and the character of each one of the members of the cohort, and Ray and Aubry, and just what a wonderful collection of people. And I just cannot say thank you enough to the National Conservation Foundation and NACD and all those that made this possible. I do want to have a little quick shout out to Tammy Cody. I see online there, and the Missouri Soil and Water Program is one of the, if not the premier conservation programs in the nation. And it's the work of Tammy and those that have done the work before us that have brought us to this point. So just last thought here, the world is ran by those who show up. And all I can do is just tell you and anyone that that they need to step up, they need to do their part. And if they don't like something, if they're not trying to do something about it, then it's their own fault. So I really encourage everyone to step up, show up, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Ryan. Great closing comments. And we're looking forward to receiving your state's applicant and your island territories applicant. We're shooting for those 50 plus applications that Aubry and I and the operating committee can sort through, grant interviews to, and set our next cohort. To our cohort members, thank you so much. Aubry, thanks so much for organizing us today and moderating our panels and whatnot. And we're going to close our session today. Thank you so much for your attendance. Good day.